All right, welcome into the locker room. David Collier here alongside, this is the first episode, so I guess I'll set the scene first. Joined by the two people you got to start a podcast with, the head man himself, Matt Wells, going into his second season here at Texas Tech, and the senior, the old guy, linebacker Rico Jeffers. Guys, we appreciate you joining us in the locker room.
Yep.
I found, I don't get to spend much time in the locker room, so I figured out the best way to get in here with you guys. Name a podcast, The Locker Room, slid right in. It was that easy. It's going to be a busy time for you guys. I totally understand you. We appreciate the time here. First, before we get into the whole spring football, which is fastly approaching here, what's been the downtime like for you guys? We'll start with you, Coach. Has it been slow? What have you been able to do that's been away from this facility that people out there might not know about you?
I think probably the only downtime we had was the unexpected free time at Christmas, just because we weren't in a bowl game. Not used to that. Don't ever want to have that again. Drove my wife crazy and all that. That's fun. We had some days, went over to New Mexico and skied with my 11-year-old, and we had a good time. But we got back in here as a staff January the 3rd, and we've been going ever since. And then the players got back January 15th, and we're just finishing up our 7th week of off season. Coach has been recruiting back, hired a couple new coaches, and then we're almost through the end of off season. So I hadn't been much rest since we've been back in January. We've been going pretty hard.
And for you, Rico, I know you've been in class. You got to do that whole thing to go along with all the off-season workouts. Any skiing or anything of that nature for you?
No, during Christmas break, I just hung out with family. Just got to be back in town with my old friends from high school and stuff. We just hung out, worked out a little bit. Got back with Coach Scholes, and we've just been grinding since then. Getting with Lauren, just getting our nutrition right, and just trying to build and stack day by day, getting better 1%.
All right, we're here in the locker room, so I guess I got to ask you the easy question to start out here as we move along here. What does a locker room mean to you, Coach? Obviously it's a sanctuary for you guys, but for a head coach, what does this facility mean to you in particular as a former player as well?
I think the biggest thing for me as a head coach is to create the atmosphere in the locker room. But it's their guys' locker room. I come in and we as coaches like to go through and see guys, say hi to guys after practice briefly, but I don't hang out per se. I think this is it's a player's deal. It has to be there has to be the freshman to the senior connection. There has to be offense to defense connections. Since we've been here, we blew it up. It goes offense, defense. It doesn't old, young. It doesn't matter because that's starting to form bonds and there's laughing, there's joking, there's some emotion, there's all those kind of sensual feelings in a locker room that I think is private to the players, and I try to keep it that way. Obviously, we got staff kind of coming in and out, but I think it's a player's game. That's as a former player, that's what you do miss. You don't miss training camp. You don't miss those practices at certain points. We all understand when we choose football, we choose one game week and 5 work days. One game day, and 5 work days. That's just football. It's not baseball's the other way around. But we chose that, and so those Saturdays are precious. But this locker room time as a former player, that's what you miss. You miss relationships with your guys, your teammates. The guy that was a locker mate to me for 4 years at Utah State, he's the head strength coach at Virginia. So that's the guy. People say, "Oh, y'all played together." I said, "No, he was right next to me." It's just those kind of bonds that you'll have forever, and that's something that I think this sport gives you, and really football gives you because of the numbers. It's a bigger game, broader spectrum, crosses a bunch of different neighborhoods. It crosses different cities, ethnicities, whatever, religious groups. And it's the one common thing that brings all of us together. And the tighter that is and the tighter the culture is, in my opinion, that wins you close games.
Yeah. Off of that, Rico, do you remember the guy that was right next to you in your first locker in the locker room here?
The guy right next to my first locker room? No, I really don't. But, I've been around some great guys. And then the locker room, it just helps build brotherhood. You're with these guys every day. you grind, you through like the blood, sweat, and tears. It's every day, you know. You can always rely on the person next to you in your locker room. And I mean, it just helps build that team bond that ends up carrying on throughout the season, so you can be able to rely on this person when times get tough or when you're facing adversity.
And it's nice that the coaches kind of leave you alone in here as well,
yeah.
right?
I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, they're more than welcome to come in here and, you know, listen to music and joke around with us. You know, we love it. It's good.
Let's move to you two's relationship. I know you probably met with every single player when you first got the job here. Can maybe both of you guys discuss that first meeting between you two and maybe how your guys' relationship has
He won't
grown?
remember this. I remember exactly the first time I met him. It was actually in the equipment room. I think it was the first day I got here. I think it was that Friday before the press conference. And we kind of had a little bit of an instant bond or an instant connection. Know his high school coach really well, Coach Barons. Rico is now the third player from that high school that I've coached. And so I've been in and out of that high school a bunch, really good high school. And so that was, you know, you have those bonds. And I always kind of joked, I'm not the guy, I'm not from Utah. You know, I've recruited the state of Texas almost my whole career, and but never had an in-state logo on to recruit Texas. But it's those relationships that are so important in Texas high school recruiting. And I had one with Rico's head coach. And so I think that was kind of the first connection between me and Rico right out of the gate.
Rico, you remember that moment, and I guess what are some of the conversations that you guys have? I know you spend more time with your position coach, but I'm sure as a leader, Coach Wells has your ear from time to time.
Yeah, we met in the equipment room. As I said, he was with his family. I just came and introduced myself to him and pretty much just let him know that I'm here ready to work and ready to just get everything back on the path that it used to be and be able to contend for Big 12 championships, national championships, and stuff like that.
You got a new coach to work with this year, and Kevin Cosgrove recently announced as one of the new assistants on the coaching staff. What is your initial thought, and I guess that relationship, and how quickly do you have to get on the same page with him considering your leadership role?
Oh man, well I just love his mentality. You know, he came from LSU, so he knows what winning is. He won a national championship last year, so he's just getting us to know that you have to do everything right to get to where they were. You know, it's from going to class, going to sleep, eating. It's from working out and film time. It's the little things that really matter. It's not just coming Saturday ready to play a game. You have to prepare mentally and, you know, just be focused in everything that you do to get to that stage.
There's different coaching styles out there as well, and we had a chance to talk to Coach Cosgrove whenever he was introduced, but just in the brief video that I've seen, he's a yeller. Do you like that kind of motivation from a position coach?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was my coach when I was younger, when I was in Pee Wee, so I mean, the yelling thing, it doesn't really get to me. I mean, I just try to listen to it and try to, you know, do what he says because I know he knows what he's talking about. You know, he came from great programs. He's been at Nebraska, Wisconsin, stuff like that. So I know he's very knowledgeable, and I'm just trying to be a sponge and soak it all in.
How about you, Coach? How did you cross paths with Coach Cosgrove? I mean, I'm sure you probably look at his resume and know plenty and everything you need to know about him.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than his resume. You know, it's a guy that I did cross paths, actually recruited against him and kind of met him on the recruiting trails. Went against him when he was at New Mexico, when he was the defense coordinator. We were at Utah State. They were very aggressive, tough-minded. My opinion, the years that they did have good years at New Mexico, and a lot of it was because of the way their defense played. And just aggressive, very fundamentally sound. With moving Coach Patterson to the safeties or back into the secondary, we identified the need to have a veteran linebacker coach that was tough, fundamental, driven, and Kevin fit that in every aspect, you know. And I want those guys to be themselves. And I think players more than anything, whether it's a guy that raises his voice, yells louder, a guy that talks quieter, I think as long as a guy, he basically walks the talk. I mean, whatever he says he's going to do, if he does it and he can back it up and he's got the knowledge and all that kind of stuff, players call it street cred, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. I think players will respect him, old and young. And Kevin's an older coach on the back end of his career. A veteran guy, but the guy's got some juice. I mean, he's a really good recruiter, and he's got some juice, and I think it'll be a great transition. I think KP kind of got that group ready for him a little bit because he's similar to Keith a little bit, but I think that'll be great for the forcing unit with him and Coach Randolph up there in the front seven, and I think Coach Cosgrove's a great addition to our staff.
Yeah, completely different ways to motivate from all different types of coaches. The other one would be Derek Jones, another recent hire. You've had a history with him. You mentioned locker mates. You shared a coaching office with him.
Right. Yeah, Derek and Coach Patterson and I were all on staff 14 years ago together, and Derek and I were the young guys. What's that say about KP? That sounded bad. This is casual, right? Unedited version. But we were all at Tulsa together and won games, and I think Derek's one of the best DB coaches in the country. That's evidenced by how the DB room at Duke has progressed over the years in terms of all conference players, in terms of NFL players, at a program that didn't have the history of that at that position. And I think that's a credit to a lot of their guys on their staff, but obviously Derek and coaching the secondary, the way he recruits, the way he invests in these young men's lives. I've seen it firsthand. I told our DBs that was a bat flip. I knew what he was going to do to invest in their lives. I didn't hire him to be their best friend. I don't hire any coach to be their best friend. But there is and will be a genuine respect and trust in that room, and that's so important in this league. You got to communicate. You got to trust each other from safety to corner, really safety down to linebacker. There's a lot of those things that go on that people don't really understand, but I'm telling you that he's the guy to help bring that all together with Coach Patterson. But Derek is, like I said, the recruiting's going to change. He's passionate about it. The way he invests in those DBs' life, trying to take them from a young man to a grown man, I think he epitomizes that very, very well in an assistant coach. That's important to me, just how he's going to invest in their life to help them grow up.
Has he given out book reports, told all the defensive backs to read his book out that you can find on Amazon, Always Play to Win?
AP2W.
There you go.
I actually bought, when that book first came out, I called DJ, and I
You wanted the advance copy. You didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's okay. I totally understand.
I got 25 of them. I handed them out to our staff at Utah State. So some of these guys that came with me, they have it. And, it's just something that he did to help the game, I think, and pay back the game. And he's trying to pass the game forward, and things that he's learned and picked up along the way, we've all stolen, and we've all, from other coaches, we've all learned from other coaches. He just put it in a book and is trying to help, I think, give back to the game of football.
All right. You want to give all you can for the game of football in your senior year, Rico. Obviously, you're worried about this year and everything, but given the guys that you've played under and played with Dakota as well as Jordan, what have those guys taught you that maybe you're going to be able to take onto the field your senior season, and maybe also help out these younger guys to continue what has been a great group over the last handful of years?
Yeah, pretty much just studying the game of football, learning it from the basics, from the formations to just identifying, tendencies that linemen have, or not putting their hand all the way down if they're pulling, stuff like that. Just little things, and just to grind hard. Those two guys, they grinded their butts off, I'm not gonna lie. It was great to be in a locker or in a room with them guys, to learn from them and just see them progress, because they definitely did throughout their time here. And they just always encouraged me, and so that's kind of what I want to do with the younger guys, just let them know that the only person who can hold you back is yourself. And you just got to believe that you can do it, and you will do it yourself.
I know you got a bunch of practices, 13 games, right? 13 games coming up this year. But you've got a buddy in Jordan Brooks that is at the NFL Combine. Do you pick his ear about what he's gone through in that situation? I know this is down the road, but it's timely. It's happening right now. I mean, that's a good resource for a guy like you who wants to follow on that path, I would imagine.
Yeah, me, Jordan, and Dakota, we have a group message. We text in it all the time, and we talk about all types of stuff. They help me with things off the field and on the field. But I've been asking about what type of stuff he's doing to prepare, and how his body's feeling for this combine coming up. And I'm just excited to see him go and display his talents and let the world see how great of a player he is.
Coach, what are your thoughts on the combine? It's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
Everybody does it, but the thing that you're a former quarterback, the hand size thing, that's not something that Rico has to worry about when what's the deal with that?
I don't know. The guy that just got measured with really small hands is a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm told Pat's hands aren't that big either.
Yeah.
I think it's just a bunch of numbers that guys, they're not going to draft or not draft a guy because I think it's just information. The old adage, smaller hands, you don't want to have be a cold city pro quarterback. I think that's probably out. I think Pat's probably dispelled the myth a little bit. It gets kind of cold in Kansas City. And he's obviously played well in cold weather games. So, I don't know, David. I do think it's a necessary evil. I mean, they're a confirmation. I think it's more than anything, it's confirmation of height, weight, physical attributes. It's also the one-on-one stuff like Rico was just talking about. JB's going through, and he's going to go through, and it's the one-on-one conversations. It's the formal interviews. It's can you carry yourself confidently? How do you answer questions? What does that got to do with playing football? I think there's some correlation to certain positions, and there's a knowledge factor. You got owners that are about to invest millions in some of these guys, and I think you want to check them out. And so the combine, there's a lot of great stuff I know that comes out of that. Like Jordan, his pro day is going to be huge for him here at Tech just because he's coming off the surgery, and I think everybody knows that. But that's the other part is doctors checking out previous injuries and injury history and stuff like that.
Before we go, we obviously have to talk about the thing at hand, and that's starting this coming week, spring practice. I know you guys have been at work. What's more hectic? What's going on the week before and getting everything situated and ready to go, or that first week of practice?
It's the same. I mean, it's long hours, long days. We finally get to go out to the grass with these guys. And, as coaches, if you really asked a coach and he was spring practice is about as pure a coaching as you can do because it's so fundamental driven. You're teaching effort. You're building a foundation of your program. Really for us in year 2, we're still teaching scheme and assignments, and things are getting tweaked on offense and defense. Most of these guys ought to know the vast majority of it, but you're still teaching. But it's competitive. It's fun. Every day there's going to be drills that the offense is going to walk off a winner. The next day defense is going to walk off a winner. Me and Coach Scholes are going to walk off winners every day, every day. But I love spring ball. I really do. And we're going to go in the afternoons this year. And I think I'm excited to watch our team in spring. We got so many guys that have changed their bodies. I keep saying it. We just went through our first real offseason. That was a real 7-week offseason that we just went through last January and February. It just wasn't, just because of circumstances. So we're bigger. We're got guys starting to get developed, and so now we need to transition. And I said that this morning. We need to transition into the next phase of offseason. Second quarter is the way we say it. First quarter being the winter offseason. Second quarter being spring ball. This is a program. This is what programs go through. You transition. We're still lifting 3 days a week. We're still grinding in the weight room. That's how you continue to build a program. And so that'll be fun. It'll be challenging for me as a head coach to try to take these guys through the next phase of it and to come out better on the back end.
This phase for you, I mean, it's got to become old hat for you to be a player, but is it more work for you as a senior? Because you got to teach. I know some of those guys are probably in your ear more than you maybe want. I mean, is it tougher as a senior going through spring practices because you're teaching stuff that you already know?
No, not really. I mean, because I want to be able to rely on these guys, just how they rely on me. So, I mean, it's great to be able to be asked questions because it keeps me on my P's and my Q's. It keeps me mentally sharp. So, I take it on. As a challenge, and it's going to help make me better at the end of the day, and it's going to help make my teammates better. And it's going to be fun to, actually get back out there, talk a little smack with the offense, get after Bowman even though we can't tackle him. But, it'll be fun. We haven't been in pads in a while, and so, it'd be great to get back into action and, just have that competition.
One last thing. You switched positions in college. You feel the same about that? As a defensive back, were you frustrated that you can't hit a quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. But it's, the thing about the QB, I get it. You just can't.
Yeah.
We got to take them into the season healthy. Obviously,
Right.
those two guys, they've had some injury history with some unfortunate things, and I think kind of unlucky things, and so got to keep them healthy. This guy right here knows it better than anybody. The guys that really hammer it home more than anybody, more than me, is the defensive coaches, because they understand you've got to have good play at quarterback to have a really good team, and we've got to keep those guys healthy. And there's always some joking around this and that, but we don't need a quarterback with a broken finger or something like that in spring practice. That's unnecessary. And so it's learning how to practice. It's not just the quarterback and staying off and around him, but it's how hard do I go and I'm still keeping my teammates up. Even when we go live, we call it Red Raiders, taking care of Red Raiders, and we're smart. We don't take unnecessary shots. We don't cut on the backside. Even though you can in games, we don't do it. We do things like that to protect ourselves, and it's practicing smart. And then in certain parts of practice, we stay up, and we go full speed thud, and we stay up, and we learn to stay on our feet. Because it's never the two guys that are engaged in the block. It's somebody coming from the side. It's kind of that can be an unnecessary injury. And so we're going to go hard. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be very, very physical this spring, but we got to learn to protect each other at certain times.
All right, I can keep going. You guys got work to do, though. Get out on the practice field. We appreciate your time. Rico, best of luck to you, man.
Thank you.
And your senior season,
Thanks,
Coach.
David. Appreciate it.
All right, that's the first edition of The Locker Room. We'll see you next week.